Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a crime thriller from the United States. This is spoken in the English and a little bit of Spanish language with some English subtitles. Released in 2015, directed by Denis Villeneuve, and this movie is called Sicario. So Sicario is about the war on drugs. You've got the United States police force fighting against the drug cartels in Mexico, and the Mexican drugs being imported through the American border. So you've got Emily Blunt's character, who is very recognised as a very skillful SWAT member who goes on drug raids. She gets the attention of these very high up officials, and she is recruited on a very secret mission to go into Juarez, which is a Mexican city besieged with drug violence, and to kidnap someone who has information about one of the drug cartel bosses. So Emily Blunt believes that her life is in danger because she's not given the total truth, and that this confidential information has something that could basically save her life, but because she's not getting it, she's starting to second guess what she's doing, and then she has to make the decision of whether or not to keep going and fighting the good fight, or basically leave and possibly save her life. So whether or not that is the case, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Sicario. I am not familiar with Denis Villeneuve. I haven't seen Prisoners, and a lot of people talk about how good Prisoners is, so I didn't have anything to compare Sicario to. So that's ultimately a good thing, because you don't have your expectations levels set to a very high standard. So not knowing what to expect with Sicario, I come away from this film absolutely gobsmacked. I think this is the closest thing to horror that a movie can get without being billed as a horror film, because it tackles something that is so realistic. The war on drugs, the Mexican drug cartels, are a horror character in themselves. These people are absolutely evil, and they will do horrific things. And the scariest thing about Sicario is that this is not just a movie. This is not a movie where you can say to yourself, these things don't really happen, because they do happen. And it's not only affecting the Mexican people, it's also affecting the United States, because these drugs are coming through and they're corrupting good people. And I thought Sicario would have been so easy to make this a mindless action film, good guys versus bad guys, but I thought the movie was handled in such a mature way, and that's what made it so terrifying. It's an absolutely horrific film, and it showcases how much power these drug cartels have, and that initially, if you want to just say that this is another country's problem, you can't, because it's like a cancer and it's growing. Without treatment, without people fighting it, it's just going to grow, and it's just going to become bigger and bigger, and the murders are just going to keep on happening. And I think Denis Villeneuve really understood the subject matter, and he's made this one of the most uncomfortable, disturbing and suspenseful films to come out in a very long time. This movie reminded me of the feeling that Seven had. Now Seven is a traditional horror film, and that really showed you a very seedy sort of underbelly of society, and showing you no goodness. There was no level of comfort. There was nowhere that you could seek a haven to. Basically allow yourself to catch your breath. And that's why Seven was so effective in what it was doing, is because it was showing you something that was genuinely terrifying. And I thought Sicario had that similar feeling, in that you didn't know who to trust, you didn't know who the good guys were. Where can you go to catch your breath? Where can you go to feel safe? And if you're not giving the viewer anywhere to go to feel safe, you exhaust the viewer. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was exhausted after this movie. I think this is incredibly disturbing, and it's one of the best movies to demonstrate good old-fashioned suspense. There were some scenes in this movie, especially in the city of Juarez, where they're trying to pick up this guy, and you don't know where the threat's coming from. Are they on the rooftops? Everyone's looking at them. You don't know. Is that guy part of the drug cartels? Is this guy part of the drug cartels? You don't know. And I just saw it had me on the edge of my seat, and something, and it didn't necessarily need any action. It was the anticipation of something happening, and it really does get on your nerves. And I just thought this was one of the most psychologically tormenting films that I have seen in a very, very long time. And the scenes in Juarez were expertly done. And then you've got them coming back from Juarez, where they're stuck in a traffic jam. I'm not going to give anything away, but that was absolutely nail-bitingly tense. And I thought Denis Villeneuve had executed two scenes of suspense absolutely brilliantly. Now the only problem is that after those two scenes, it doesn't really go to the levels of that sort of feeling again, but it was just something you don't experience from a lot of suspenseful movies, and it was just something that I really, really appreciated. Psychologically, I think Denis Villeneuve absolutely nailed this movie. I thought the score was fantastic. It really it gets your heart pumping, and it was the corruption of good people in the movie. It shows you how powerful these Mexicans are, these Mexican drug cartels are, because although these certain characters might be wearing police uniforms, you didn't know whether or not the drug cartels had gotten to them, had corrupted them. The lure of money. big money, billions of dollars. You don't know whether or not, these people who we deem as good people, people to protect us, you don't know if they are corrupted. So once again, even though you're in a seemingly safe environment, you don't know if there is a threat. And I just think that everything in the movie it nailed the feeling. I thought it paid respect to the subject matter. As I said, it would have been very easy for Sicario to make it an action film, black and white, good versus bad, but it shows you just the level of paranoia that drug cartels make. Emily Blunt's character, she is way over her head, and you feel that, where can she turn to get safety? And you feel that at a certain point she has gone beyond the level of safety, and that she's basically by herself. She doesn't know who she can trust, and as I said, it just it intensifies that thought of paranoia. And it was just absolutely incredible the way that this movie made me feel, and I wasn't expecting it. As I said, it's the closest thing to horror that you will get from a movie that doesn't bill itself as a horror film. So the acting from Emily Blunt, I do have a problem with her character, which I'll go into a little bit later, but Benicio del Toro, he knocks this out of the park. This is a guy who was intimidating, but at the same time had a lot of charm. So you like him, but at the same time you fear him, because there's a lot of confidential information that is not given. And so you feel to yourself, okay, the stuff that he is allowing Emily Blunt's character to see is very heartwarming, very charming, so you like the guy. But then you think to yourself, has the drug cartel got to this guy? What is he hiding? Is he a traumatic sort of, has he suffered traumatic events in the past? And because you feel that he has a dark side to him. And that's the same with Josh Brolin's character, he played his character very well, but it's the same sort of thing, is that you feel Emily Blunt is being kept in the dark, and that is ultimately making her, safety at risk. And so I just thought the characters were absolutely fantastic, and it does complement the psychological atmosphere that the movie has going for it, because as I said, seemingly safe environments are not safe when it comes to Mexican drug cartels. So my problem with Emily Blunt's character was that she wasn't really that likeable. She does go through some pretty horrific things, and you think to yourself that, no one should have to see what she's seeing, but you care more about the overall situation in Mexico, the overall situation of drugs, as opposed to actually caring for her. So I think the attention was put onto the wrong character. I would have liked a lot more insight into Benicio del Toro's character, but at the same time, I think the level of mystery in Benicio del Toro's character made him so interesting. So I just think Emily Blunt, she doesn't do a bad job, but she didn't really have that memorable quality to make her very sympathetic. So I didn't really like her character, but having said that, it at least gave you some level of decency. Her character, she wanted to do the good thing, but you felt that she was in a world where goodness doesn't exist, and so you have something to barrack for. But it would have been a lot better to barrack for someone who was, as I said, just a little bit more likeable and a little bit more relatable. And so my other problem with the movie is, as I just mentioned, you got the two great scenes in Juarez where the suspense is absolutely second to none, but the movie doesn't really elevate itself until right at the end. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but there is a moment in the film that there is a little bit of talking that does release the pressure valve a little bit. But that atmosphere of pure dread, just nowhere to hide, nowhere to gain any safety, nowhere to catch your breath, nowhere to feel good about yourself. It's just a really downbeat film that hits you with the power of a sledgehammer. And I think this is one of the best films to come out of the United States, not only this year, but in the last few years. So this is a very, very good film that I would highly recommend to anyone out there. Go out there and see it. I'm going to give this movie 4.5 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.